What's going on, everybody? I am Too Stupid to Win, and I'm joined by Mars, Utah for Legit's Fired Up week number 13. Ooh, we're on week 13 already, huh?
Yeah, we had we missed 12 there with the holidays. It was mayhem. I know we both had some things going on personally and wildness. So we're on to 13, my favorite number here, and ready to go.
Yeah, have a good holiday. Good time off.
Yeah, it was good. I'm not sure if we've talked about it on this podcast, but yeah, I have a new human that's fresh to the world, a couple weeks. So it was a good time carting around to see the family and such things. How about you?
Yeah, it was a good time. Talked about it. If you missed the Upland Property Experts podcast, make sure you check that out. That was done on Thursday. So, yeah, I talked about that. My wife's family was in town. Deep fried 3 turkeys. Lot of turkeys and a lot of ways to eat turkey afterwards. So it was a good time.
Yeah, you sent me that picture of you frying away there with that big gathering. Yeah, we were the opposite. We were kind of driving all over the earth to see all the family. So hopefully we can get them all in one place like you do next year.
That's always nice when you got one local spot. So that's good. What we do here on Legit Fired Up is help you identify what NFLPA Mementos to target, which you can take advantage of. And this game is not cheap. Buying these Mementos, they're not cheap. They're one of ones. So, and they're specifics for that game. So you're going to see an increase in price, but we're here to help you target and spend your UpX in the right spots, and hopefully will help. And if you listened in week 11, I was all over Tony Pollard, and he went off that week. And you actually messaged me too about a flex play.
Yeah, I was we both mentioned him a little bit. You were more confident, and in my fantasy league, I executed a daring strategy and ended up with about 6 good running backs. So thankfully I did put him in.
Yeah, that league. You're always sending me the running back challenge of the week. You're like, who do I flex?
Yeah, that's one of the problems with doing a good job at one position group is now you have decisions.
Yeah, I got wide receiver issues like that too. So, this is week 13, as we said. We'll jump right into that. Injury report for week 11. You got 3 quarterbacks that are mending injuries: Justin Fields, Aaron Rodgers, and who am I missing? The third one. Those are the 2 big ones.
Yeah, I unfortunately don't.
I didn't even write it down because I'm like, oh, I got this.
Yeah,
I got this.
Matt Stafford is out. Matthew Stafford is out.
Yeah, Matthew Stafford is out. They're not sure if he's returning this season. And the reason the injury report update here is important is you don't want to spend your UpX on a player that's not even going to participate in the game because you're going to get no stats. And that's a lot of UpX to waste for no stats. And if you've never checked out the Mementos in the store on game day, your offensive linemen are 75,000 UpX. So that's $75. That's a lot for an offensive lineman and somebody that grew up collecting baseball cards, football cards, basketball cards. That's a lot to pay for an offensive lineman. I don't care what kind of card it is.
Yeah, that's amongst the collectors, which I am, as you can see around me always. Football's always been one of the toughest ones to buy packs and things for because there's so many positions that aren't sought after, like the guys in the trenches on the offensive and defensive line and things like that. So it's very, very interesting. But it's whether you're targeting for a specific collection, so you want to get those fire stats. Like you said, you want to make sure that those guys are actually playing. I'm a Titans fan, as you can see, busted out the CJ2K today. I threw myself off track. But there's a lot of guys on there who aren't going to be playing for the rest of the year that are still listed. So you really want to make sure you do your research on that and be careful.
And you can go to the NFL.com. They usually have the injury reports up. There's ESPN there's plenty of places that you can just pull up if you're not very familiar and you want to chase the offensive or defensive lineman. Just make sure, and even with your big time players, even with Aaron Rodgers coming back, he's mending. So, he's playing with some injuries, but he hasn't been the Aaron Rodgers that you had before. He hasn't had many 300-yard games this year. I believe he's only had one or none. It's pretty bad. He's the reigning MVP, but he's not playing like it. So even though he's coming back, I would stay away from him.
Yeah, that's a tough benchmark. And yeah, the passing is definitely down this year. So the amount of quarterbacks, if you're chasing specific fire stats, especially at 300 yard, is going to be a little harder this year. Yeah.
Yeah, and Justin Fields is coming back from his shoulder injury, but he's getting his fantasy points usually rushing, and he's very rarely plays with 300 yards passing. But he might have a good chance because they might not want him running this week. They might have him rolling out and throwing the ball a little more. So he's got an opportunity to maybe crack that 300 and not get those points by rushing and hogging all the rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, that's a
And
good
then
point. Yeah, these injuries do come into play in more than one way. And I'm just seeing here, although the game was last night, Von Miller is look like out for basically the year, so he's a popular player. So yeah, those you got to watch out for those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another key injury to watch is the running back situation in Pittsburgh with Najee Harris. If he's going to miss the game, that would make Warren an upgrade and definitely playable in their matchup this week. Jamar Chase from the Cincinnati Bengals. He is limited in practice, but they're talking about him playing. You got to treat him as a star wide receiver that can get you those fire stats anytime he steps on the field.
Yeah, that's an interesting situation there. Joe Mixon, I believe, is also still questionable on the Bengals, so a lot to watch there. And yeah, the fire stats for the running backs do seem to be a little higher than wide receivers, also, at least in the touchdown category.
And with the Washington Commanders, they've been playing split backfield with Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson's questionable, so once again, you want to look there. Brian Robinson had a great week in week 12, and I just now looked and saw it and update my injury report slide. It's still showing week 11. That's what happens when you recycle the same slides and don't do a good check before you go live.
Yeah, my my sheet here, I have Brian Robinson also. Pay attention to Antonio Gibson, but he's been putting out a lot of good stats also with him there, so that's a good call to keep an eye on.
And the running back situation in New York is interesting. Michael Carter hasn't practiced. He's got that ankle injury going on. They're not really sure if Ty Johnson and Zonovan Knight are going to split or if they're going to go with Zonovan Knight, and James Robinson will be active this week too. So it could be a three-headed monster, or they could give Zonovan Knight a full run with it. So if you're into speculation, that's a good backfield to speculate on, and it's a decent matchup where you could get some fire stats from your running back. And that's the hardest thing with the running back is having them have to score 2 touchdowns for that fire stat under TDs.
Yeah, I meant to take a little closer look at the collections. I know they're separated between mementos, with some you need 2 fire stats, some 3. I'm not sure if there are some with 4. But yeah, if you're looking for 4, running back is going to be a lot harder to get one from than wide receiver because of the 1 touchdown versus 2 touchdown designation.
Yeah. And then the only other notable, Jerick McKinnon fills in. He's not the starter in Kansas City, but he is also questionable. So
Jerick.
I thought you said
Sorry, I thought
yeah.
you said Jerk McKinnon. I was going to say it's not very nice, but Jarek McKinnon. Okay. And yeah, before we slide by
Yes.
the muddy Jets backfield situation, I saw you picked him up also in the podcast fantasy league, but I enjoy and I'm proud of the amount of times you got to say Zonovan already in this podcast.
You like the self plug.
That's a great
Yeah.
name that guy has that came out of nowhere. Great name.
Absolutely. Are there any wide receivers that you're watching this week that you're concerned about from an injury
Um,
standpoint?
Not too much on the injury standpoint. I think nothing on my radar, unfortunately. A lot of tight ends are falling off onto IR. You have, I think Waller recently was officially put on IR, Darren Waller from the Raiders.
Yeah.
Um, let's see, Kyle
Kyle,
Pitts
I
from
disappoint.
Atlanta.
Kyle,
Yes,
I
the most
disappoint every
disappointing.
fantasy player, Pitts.
Yeah, he was.
And
I was high on him as well, and luckily didn't get him. But yeah, he's been injured and now officially out for the year. But yeah, are there any wide receivers that you have on your radar that I'm missing here for injuries?
the only one is Debo Samuel. Samuel is questionable. He's been limited in practice or not practice this week. So continue to watch him. He is electric when he's on the field, and you never know how Kyle Shanahan will use him. And he has the potential to break games open, get big long plays, and that's a challenging one if you're chasing fire with Debo. Is because sometimes he might get the long rush, which doesn't count for a wide receiver, and he'll have shorter passes. Even though his stat sheet looks well, sometimes it's how he acquires those stats could impact is he going to have a fire game or not.
Yes, yeah. As we said, many times, bringing over the fantasy football mindset, you do have to switch gears here on a lot of these things because those sort of hybrid players that get points in all sorts of different ways and yards in all sorts of different ways in fantasy that tend to be an advantage or actually a disadvantage if you're chasing the fire stats on mementos sometimes.
Yeah. And Devonta Smith is questionable. Has been practicing, not in full, but definitely check that stat if you're looking to play some Philadelphia Eagles. They do have a good matchup this week.
All right.
All right,
Yeah,
we've
and
spent a
we've got
lot of
some
time on injury. We got to
yeah, I was gonna say we got a lot of high over unders set by Vegas this week. So that was interesting and good to see.
That's a great segue. Yeah, some high over unders that we call the games of the week. Kansas City Chiefs versus the Cincinnati Bengals. You look to have a shootout there. A lot of people might be shocked to see the Jacksonville Jaguars and Detroit Lions, but Detroit's got no defense, and they are offense that can put up the points, and Jacksonville can also put up the points. It will come down to a pace of play, but Vegas is saying, hey, they're going to combine for at least 51 points, pretty close to 51 points. So a lot of scoring there. A lot of scoring usually comes from a lot of good offensive stats.
Yeah, yeah. Also,
Then,
in the research I was doing a little bit, or not so much research, but changing the strategy mindset for defensive players and the offensive line. Where a lot of these team stats come into play. These games that are predicted to be high scoring also have some effect there as far as total yardage, number of first downs the offensive lineman's team will get, their offensive yards. So a lot of ways to take the over under set by Vegas into account here.
yeah, absolutely. Um, Also this week, the Los Angeles Chargers versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Cleveland Browns versus Houston Texans. That's going to be interesting. This is the first game Deshaun Watson, would you like a massage, is back from his suspension. Um, so great opportunity to, he's playing against his former team where he was traded from, hasn't played in 2 years in an NFL game, but he led the league in passing in 2020. I mean, he could easily put up 300 yards just to stick it to his old team.
Yes, he could. I made the move of picking him up a few weeks ago in many fantasy leagues and stashing him in the injured reserve spot. So he may be massaging my glutes right into one of my starting lineups this week. I'm not sure.
Nice. And last but not least, that's over 45 points for the week is the Miami Dolphins versus San Francisco 49ers. Um, that will be a good game. And I was surprised that this game was actually higher than 45 with how well San Francisco's defense has been playing. Um, so we'll see how that game plays out this Sunday.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you there. It's one of those games that really the strengths of the Miami offense, match up with the strengths of the San Francisco defense, and yeah, it's interesting that Vegas is setting the line that high, but they are
Yeah.
good. So
Yes, they are. They're good at taking your money. Um, All right, we're going to talk about some offensive players right now that we have. If we've already mentioned them, we'll be quick to move over them. But quarterbacks, who you liking this week at quarterback from people that we haven't talked about yet?
yeah, yeah. So you see here we have the categories that you can get the fire on. So like we were saying, they're very specific. Quarterbacks quickly. I mean, they're obviously going to be the most expensive guys on their team to pick up. But if you're looking for these stats, Patrick Mahomes is always a go. As TML would say, Jason Burrow might be a good option. No, that's Joe Burrow from the Cincinnati Bengals. And Patrick Mahomes from the Chiefs. They always light it up. And another option based on the defense might be Trevor Lawrence for the Jaguars playing against the Detroit Lions. And if you're looking for some guys whose prices might be cheaper, starting quarterbacks, I'm kind of intrigued by Mike White for the New York Jets and Marcus Mariota for the Atlanta Falcons playing against the Steelers defense. How about you? What are you thinking there?
What you haven't mentioned, I'll go on the other side of that Atlanta game, and I like Kenny Pickett. There's a great opportunity. Amazingly, Atlanta has been in six really high scoring games, six or seven really high scoring games, combined team totals. And they're not against the offenses that you would like think would put up a lot of points on them. In those, they've kind of controlled the pace and brought those down, and they've been low scoring games. So Pittsburgh fits right into the offensive teams that have put up big scores that had Atlanta a shootout with Atlanta. So I think this is a great opportunity for Kenny Pickett to put up a chance at some fire stats because Atlanta's defense is pretty porous and you can throw all over it all day long.
Yeah, that should
And
be an
then
interesting
Jalen
one.
Hurts, of course.
Yes. Yeah, and but as I was just kind of rethinking with the Marcus Mariota, he's a running quarterback, but they do throw a ton of screen passes that will technically count. So yeah, and the same thing with Jalen Hurts, where those rushing yards may look great in other fantasy formats, but he also slings it around against my Titans who don't play good defense.
Yeah, and Jared Goff does have the potential going up against Jacksonville. That could be a shootout there too. So you do have that ability there.
Yes.
Moving over to the running back category, or did you want to say something there? I'm sorry.
No, that's about all I got at quarterback. Yeah, I'm guessing it looks like most of your good options this week for fire stats are going to be more the pricey ones. Like I said, really the only confident sleeper might be Mike White.
Yeah, and then on the running backs this week against the Houston Texans, Nick Chubb has a real great way to light it up this weekend. Get those 2 touchdowns, get that 100 yards, break a 20-yard run, everything that you're looking for your running backs to hit fire stats. So he's got a real good chance, but he is a star on the Cleveland Browns, so he's going to be a pricey piece. And then a discounted piece that I was looking at this week, as long as Najee Harris is not a go, um, you have Jalen Warren for the Pittsburgh Steelers that should be there to uh, pick up some fire stats.
Yeah, not too. I'm pretty much in agreement with you there. Had both those guys down for the pricier options, and actually there may be a value here, but I was Josh Jacobs for the Raiders has been going absolutely insane lately, and they're playing against the Chargers, who are very hit and miss on their run defense. So if you want a higher end running back, I think he's a good play. Also, like Kenny Walker for the Seattle Seahawks. They're playing against the Rams, who normally have a great run defense, but Aaron Donald is out this week, the Rams defensive tackle. So that may open up a lot of running lanes. And also, Seattle could have a big lead. So he looks like a good play. And just quick, kind of doubling back, we talked about Brian Robinson for Washington, like him. Depending on the Joe Mixon situation, Samaj P. Ryan's been serviceable, and Jalen Warren. And also an interesting one to kind of watch for the Jaguars if Travis Etienne is out. They recently picked up Darrell Henderson. And with that game possibly being offensive outburst, if Etienne's limited, that might be a sneaky play if he's even added to the Jaguars by now. I'm not sure how quickly Upland moves on those transactions.
I doubt they'll have that. I don't know. I don't know. I'd be surprised. I would be surprised if they did have that.
Me too, as it was coming out of my mouth. So maybe a warning on him, but I was trying to find some low price running back options out there.
Yeah, and that will be interesting too. You have with the running quarterbacks, you could have David Montgomery do a little better this week because Green Bay is giving up over 5 yards per carry, and if they're protected fields, that would open up some running opportunities, more carries for David Montgomery from the Chicago Bears.
Good point. Yeah, you usually kind of limit him because of the carries that are vultured off of him by Fields. But yeah, with that injury hamperment, that sounds like a good play.
Yeah. All right, and let's move on to wide receiver.
Yeah, so we got the fire stat categories, are the same for wide receiver and tight end, but obviously, if you're looking to fill a collection or something like that, you want to target these a little differently. Wide receiver, really, let's see, some of the real high priced. I like AJ Brown against Tennessee. I think AJ Brown from the Philadelphia Eagles. And then Christian Kirk for the Jacksonville Jaguars. We've talked about that matchup with the Jaguars and Lions being, high paced. And also some probably cheaper options if you want to take a shot. Might be Christian Watson from Green Bay. He's been going off for the last few weeks. And right back to the Jacksonville-Detroit game with Zay Jones, who's also seen an increased connection with his quarterback. And those are the ones that I'm kind of liking here at wide receiver.
Yeah, that Zay Jones is a great call there. Definitely like that. He's been lighting it up. Same with Christian Kirk. They made fun of Jacksonville for the crazy salary that they paid him this offseason to sign with them as a free agent. Of course, at high priced. I'm interested in Jamar Chase coming back. Other than that, Amari Cooper could have a good game for Cleveland against Houston, getting out early there. Justin Jefferson's been on a tear. He's just been on a tear. He's a freak of nature. And I do like the Pittsburgh Steelers, George Pickens and Deontay Johnson also.
Yeah, you're putting your faith in the Pickett this week, huh? I like that. He's taking some chances.
To stack it up.
Yeah.
To stack it up. That's my chance.
I was just gonna say I chose AJ Brown. As he's got his revenge game here against my Titans, so he may be a little extra motivated. And Jamar Chase, obviously, like you said, he's a stud when he plays. but they are working him back in from injury, and with the two other wide receivers that they have who are above serviceable, so that could be a little riskier. And just because I said that, he'll have 3 touchdowns and 200 yards. Jamar Chase.
There you go. The only tight ends that I'd even consider this week are your studs, Travis Kelce from the Kansas City Chiefs, and Mark Andrews from the Baltimore Ravens. That's all I'd really touch if you're chasing fire.
Yeah, it's really tough living in the tight end world for fantasy and other things this year in football. So yeah, I have obviously Kelce really is the only I feel the only can't miss option. Obviously he can miss, but even Mark Andrews has been a little all over. And Dalton Schultz for Dallas has seen an uptick since Dak Prescott came back. He had 2 touchdowns on Thanksgiving.
That's right.
So, if you're looking for another option, he may be getting back to his normal self from last year. And if you're looking for a cheaper option, I just jotted down Foster Moreau for the Raiders with Darren Waller on injured reserve. That could be a high-scoring shootout kind of game. He's been playing pretty good recently. So if you're looking for a lower-priced tight end with not many options at all out there, he could be one to look at.
Absolutely. All right, defense. I have nothing on defense, but these are. Did you do any defense this week?
Yeah, I did a little bit, and we don't have a slide for the offensive lineman because that's a little hard to get into, but I did just go by team. You may want to look at linemen from the Chiefs versus Cincinnati, linemen from the Jaguars, or linemen from the Eagles, possibly, were just all I jotted down. Obviously, you want to try look at which one of those linemen are the best, but there's really no individual stats for linemen. So,
and
find the
who's
cheapest
on
guy on a
injured
good
reserve,
team.
and which lineman is actually going to start, because Upland doesn't tell you who's injured. They just list all the names there. So you also want to make sure you're getting somebody that is starting and not injured reserve.
Yes, yeah. So
Or out for the
really
game.
that's the strategy with the offensive linemen. They want to be playing and just on a good team. So offensively that meet the first number of first downs and things. Getting over to defense here. You see the categories. We have the yards allowed. So if you're, looking to hit that one, you're going to want to look at a good team there also. But a lot of this stuff is super unpredictable, just because turnovers and interceptions, are rare. I have jotted down for probably the high-priced options, Micah Parsons on Dallas versus the Colts. And your guy, Myles Garrett, the defensive lineman for the Browns against Houston.
Yes. And then, Chicago traded away all their good defensive linemen, because I was going to, and Green Bay's defense has been lackluster. Now,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
mentioning that Matthew Stafford is out. One of your defensive linemen from Seattle has a good chance of putting up some sacks. The Rams' offensive line on pass blocking is not the greatest. Yeah, Baltimore's defensive line against the Broncos. I like those matchups there too.
Yes, yeah, that's a good point. And just a couple more individuals I had jotted down, if their price point makes a little more sense for you, is Max Crosby on the Raiders against the Chargers. He's been playing really well and doing highly ranked in the sack department. And possibly our Upland ambassador, Cam Jordan, on the Saints versus Tampa Bay.
Ooh,
But
I like
just
that.
a couple unconventional options.
Yeah. Did you have anybody in the secondary jotted down?
Yeah, that's actually where the Rams and the Matthew Stafford thing kind of rears its head for me. So Seattle has I believe he's a rookie, Tariq Woolen.
Yes,
and
he is.
he's leading the league in interceptions. So he might be a great play against whoever is playing quarterback for the Rams that I can't even remember. We have the Jets and the Vikings are in a big time game, which means Kirk Cousins might throw some interceptions. So I just jotted down Sauce Gardner from the Jets, another rookie. And then just looking at the tackles, solo tackles, yards allowed, Derwin James from the Chargers, whose safety could be an interesting option.
Yeah, that's Derwin, stud right there. So yeah, absolutely. All righty. We are running a little long this week. I think
Yes, and
we're
we're getting to
figuring out
the big
snapping
finale,
and
our
kicking.
favorite part.
Our favorite part, the snapping and the kicking. So this week, I decided that my long snapper of the week is going to be JJ Jansen from the Carolina Panthers. You have you have shot or yeah, Eddie Pinheiro is their place kicker. He's got some range to it, so you can get those long field goals. But his punter, Johnny Hecker, has down the most punts inside the 20-yard line this season. So you got a pretty good chance of getting the fire stats on that long snapper, JJ Jansen from the Carolina Panthers for me. What about you?
Oh man, how do I follow that up? I mean, you're just we were locked up on Cheese Man last week, but now you come back with JJ Jansen. These long snapper names are just phenomenal.
Yes, sir.
Um,
They
yeah,
are.
I
If you got a
have.
great name, you got the potential to be a long snapper.
Yeah, just if you have a cool name, lift some weights and learn how to snap. You're in. I going with this one just because I think game pacing could have a lot to do with it, but Matthew Orzich, I believe his name is, for the Rams. I think that's how you say it. Orzich for the Los Angeles Rams. Their kicker, Matt Gay, could have a lot of field goals with their quarterback situation. I could see that offense, even if they do move the ball down the field, sputtering out before they get touchdowns. So you might not get it in the extra point made department, but I think he has a lot of potential for the other three. They have a good snapper there as well, Riley Dixon, or a good
Yeah.
punter rather, Riley Dixon. And then, always for me, if there's the old reliable Nick Moore for Baltimore, which is always the safe bet to partner with Justin Tucker on the Ravens.
That is always a safe bet there. So, yeah. All right. That wraps it up for this week of Legit's Fired Up. Let us know what you want to see from us, content that you want to hear from us as we continue to grow this show and continue to figure out how we can best provide information to you guys for your happy huntings on your mementos in the Upland community. Mars, you got anything before we get out of here?
No, just another good show, and good luck everybody this weekend. And hopefully we can help you, find some of those mementos with fire stats. If you're hoping to fill a collection or whatever your goal is, I hope you get it done this weekend. And yeah, give us some feedback and let us know what else we can do for you.
All right. Until then, everybody be safe, have fun, and we'll see you out there in the metaverse.